Immigration, I think, is an issue that matters to each and every one of us in this room. Before the recession, this country had a whole lot of problems, and you know them as well as I do. 47 million people without health insurance, million more in danger of losing health insurance, one illness away from financial disaster, and million more workers were in a situation where they lost their pay raises every year to premium increases. Now this, in the richest country in the world, pension plans are being eroded and they are covering fewer and fewer Americans. Particularly as the baby boomers, as we begin to retire within the next 5-6 years, if this continues, what is going to happen to them? Are we going back to the days when they subsisted on Alpo dog food? Income inequality is increasing in this country where we have more poor than ever before. The middle class is shrinking as their jobs are being exported overseas. And at the same time, we have more rich people than at any time. The typical CEO now makes 538 times the wages of the average worker. And because of the broken labor law system, the percentage of workers continues to decrease that are in unions, make it more difficult for workers to have an effective voice on the job, in their communities, and in the civic life of this country. Now this is a real problem for the future of America. What kind of country are we going to be having if this continues and we don't have the power to impact the future direction of this country? These issues matter to every one of us in this country, whether we're Latino, Caucasian, API, African American, Native Americans, whether we're immigrants or native born. Each and every one of us is deeply impacted by this. And if we are to get out of this mess, we have to figure out how we expand the coalition of people who care about these issues in the direction of America. Now, as you know, the negative tone of the immigration debate has created intense interest in the Latino and immigrant community. We, in the last election, had the largest turnout of Latino voters in our history. And everything tells us these voters fully intend to become engaged into the elections in the future. They have tasted what it is like to participate and win, and they are not going to go away, because their involvement is basically because they feel that they are being taken advantage of, they are being singled out, and they are being scapegoated. Now, when they voted in November, they voted overwhelmingly for progressive candidates. Barack Obama got 2 out of every 3 voters that showed up. And so I think there's 2 things, very quickly, that matter for the progressive community. Number 1, if we are to expand this electorate to win, the progressive community needs to solidly be on the side of immigrants. That will solidify and expand the progressive coalition for the future. And let me tell you, when you are in the middle of a fight for your life, you will remember who was there with you. And immigrants count on progressives to be able to do that. Number 2, we reformed the immigration laws. It puts 12 million people on the path to citizenship and eventually voters. Can you imagine if we have even the same ratio, 2 out of 3, if we have 8 million new voters that care about our issues and will be voting, we will create a governing coalition for the long term, not just for an election cycle. The last point I would say, I am absolutely convinced that for immigrants to achieve their dreams, they need the support of progressive America. But I am as equally convinced that for progressive America to achieve its goal of a more just and equitable society, it needs Latinos and immigrants to be on their corner and fighting for the same issues. While we may have our own interests, I absolutely believe that we share a vision of what America can and should be. And if we come together, I believe there is nothing we cannot achieve.